Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order, welcome to Panwo TV and welcome to a very balmy, pleasant evening here in Oxford. I'm off to Oxford Town Hall to see another event. Now the last time I went to one of these events, I think it was Dr. John Lennox, wasn't it? God, how many years ago? That was just before I went to Denmark, so that's 2019. I'm going back there again to see another event, and I'll just show you exactly what I'm going to go and see. Okay guys, this is the event I'm going to go and see. It's called The Science of Psychedelics with Dr. Chris Timmerman. That's a very Shrimpton triggering name there. Funnily enough, he's not German. I'll go on to that later. Psychedelics. This is an enlightening talk on psychedelics from a key researcher at the Psychedelic Research Group at Imperial College London. Psychedelics have been used around the world for thousands of years, and yet there is even evidence of other mammals seeking out psychoactive plants while foraging for food. In today's world, we are experiencing a psychedelic renaissance after decades of prohibition. These powerful molecules are being studied for their applications in neuroscience and mental health treatments. Yeah, and Dr. Stanislav Grof is an interesting guy talking about that. Okay, but anyway, this is not him. This is Dr. Chris Timmerman, our speaker, as one of the key researchers in the field. In this talk, he will outline the science behind most well-known psychedelics and explain how they increase interconnectivity in the brain. We'll also learn how these compounds can treat anxiety, depression and PTSD. Christopher Timmerman, PhD, is a neuroscientist, psychologist and DVD agent. No, he's not. No, he's not a DVD agent. So he's from Santiago, Chile. Alright, he's like Coach Red Pill. Get everywhere, don't they, Chileans? And they're based at the Centre for Psychedelic Research in Imperial College London, where he conducted the first neuroimaging studies on the effects of the potent psychedelic DMT. Really? What about Rick Strassman? Anyway, his work focuses on the neuroscience, psychology, beliefs and ethics of the psychedelic experience. Talk starts 7:30 p.m, which is in, not long now. In fact, I better go in a minute. Doors open 6:45 p.m. Well, I don't have to leave for about, I'll leave in about 3/4 of an hour. And I haven't watched this yet, but this is him, I think. How Psychedelics Alter the Mind by Chris Timmerman. This should be interesting because it's a subject I'm interested in, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yes, it's all very touristy where I'm going, and you may recognise this if you are a regular viewer, but I'm going to go to the town hall, but I'm going via Merton Street because it's much more pleasant and quieter than going straight up High Street. It's a very nice little bit here. Now, last time I went down here, it was when I went to see Lennox. I think it was pitch dark, wasn't it? It was around about the same time. So, as you can see, it's spring here now in England, and it's actually quite nice. I hope the weather actually is forecast to continue like this all over the Easter weekend, which is wonderful. Not for me. I'm not actually going anywhere. I'm just doing my usual thing. But for those people who are going to head for the seaside and other things like that, I'm pleased for them. I'm glad about that. Now, this guy Timmerman, I never heard of him before until I heard about this lecture. Never knew anything about him, which is I thought I might have, because as you know, it's a subject I'm interested in. In fact, if you go to the description box, you'll see links to. I'll put a link into my Molyneux reply on ayahuasca, and a couple of other things where I've discussed this. So fluoride and the pineal, I'll bring that up, and I might talk about that later actually. Might even talk about it before I get there, but so I don't forget. So that I've never heard of this guy, but if you also, I'll put in the description box a link to his official website, which is actually a page at Imperial College London, which is where he's Professor of Brain Science. And funny enough, there's a photo of him there, and he looks the part. He's got long hair and kind of beard. He's a sort of neat beard. He's quite young, and he looks like a hippie. He looks like a hippie. He looks just the kind of bloke to be interested in things like this. Oh yeah. And so I'll be meeting, or it's a bit noisy. It's supposed to be quiet around here. Oh, blimey. It's not, oh god, you know what they're doing? They're filming something. That doesn't mean I can't get past. But they're obviously, look, they often film things in Oxford. Probably the new series of Morse, or something like that, or Lewis. Oh, what the hell is this? Don't say it's a crashed UFO. No, it can't be. But they're filming, you see, they're filming stuff. So, I'm just going to go over here. And so, alright, so, oh good, at least we can't get past. What the hell's going on there? What are these? Cranes. Oh, they're booms for lights. I see, right. Yep, okay guys. I don't know what they're filming here, but they're filming something. It's going to be a movie here. Yeah. I wonder what that's going to be. Anyway. So my own film set has suddenly merged with another film set. My location shoot has merged with another location shoot. Yeah, where was I? Yeah. So this guy, you go to his page at Imperial College. He's Professor of Brain Science, and you can. There's a couple of other things online with him as well, which I haven't watched yet. But I'll be seeing him for real soon. I might get a chance to talk to him. I don't know. It depends. I don't know how big this event's going to be. It might, if it's in the Great Hall like Lennox was, then it'll be because there was like a couple of hundred people at Lennox talk. So there's camera boom, see? That's it, yeah. There's Logic Lane. It's very just all touristy here. And there's you see the back here of Oriel and Merton colleges. So I'm nearly there now. We'll see exactly what that's going to be, but I'm curious to see what he's got to say now. Before I'll probably forget later on, and I've actually got my notebook with me. I left my phone at home, which I don't normally do. I just thought, well, hell, I'm not going to need it really. But I got like good old pen and paper to write with. And I didn't bring my spare pen, so I don't know how long my current pen's going to last. So I hope I can make all the notes I want to make of his talk. If not, I'll just have to remember it, won't I? Yeah, I'll put a link to in the description box to my reply to Stefan Molyneux, ayahuasca, where he takes a very dim view of it. I don't. I believe it has genuine healing abilities. He says, no, it's just escaping from reality. Well, this guy, as you heard from his talk, he's from the intro to the blurb of the talk, he does appear interested in the potential medical uses of psychedelics. I'm curious though to find out what his position is on whether he's a materialist or not, because Oriel Square, they got this is up now, yeah. There was Oriel College here, yeah. Whether he's one of these oh, it's all in the brain and it's just a message, it's all neurons and consciousness created by the brain, or whether he's more open-minded like Rick Strassman, who says unequivocally, no, it actually, what the psychedelic experience does is it reveals, that's lovely, isn't it, down there, it reveals different aspects of reality. In other words, actually reveals something about the nature of the universe itself. Rick Strassman went into his, I've actually brought my copy of DMT, the Spirit Molecule, on his book. I'm just using it, I just need something like as a hard surface to lean on when I've got my notebook, and I thought I'll take that. Give that some positive vibes. And see, he went into it just simply seeing it as a medical experiment to basically neuropsychiatry. He wanted to see what effect it would have on the brain. He was interested in the possible uses of it as a psychiatric drug. And Stanislav Grof did the same thing. He got into psychedelics thinking, well, maybe this can sort of help people. It can work kind of like an antidepressant or an antipsychotic drug. And both Strassman and Grof came out of their research project transformed. realising that this drug doesn't just change brain chemistry and make you think or feel a certain way. It actually reveals something about the nature of human consciousness and the universe itself. So I'm curious to see what this guy's position is. As I said, I don't know anything about him except what I've already read to you. It could be that he may be getting into this in the same way that, as a materialist, by the time he's finished his particular field of research, he might come out of it a woo-woo, like Rick Strassman and Stanislav Grof. I don't know. Graham Hancock, I mean, I do recommend Graham Hancock's book Supernatural as well. That's a brilliant, that goes into the history of it, how he believes cavemen used it thousands of years ago, magic mushrooms and things like that. Anyway, guys, gentlemen and ladies, we're almost at the town hall now, so I'll just love you and leave you till the end now, and I'll see you when I come out of here. Oh, by the way, I'm going to send a link of this to Niall Murphy. You know that I do recommend, unfortunately you can't get them anymore, but through the opaque lens with Niall Murphy. He used to do a show called Shamanic Freedom Radio, and I don't know, I've got the archive privately, I don't know what his position is on me sharing it, but I won't do it without his permission. But I'm curious, I think he might like this, because this is a particular field of expertise. And Shamanic Freedom Radio is a great show. I was on it a couple of times. Niall did about 150 episodes, then ended it. There was actually a lecture I've been listening to this afternoon by one of the shows where he records a lecture by Andy Roberts, the UFO skeptic, who's written a book called Albion Dreaming, which is all about the psychedelic experience. Also, I mentioned, I do wonder, maybe I'll come on to this in more detail later, whether the Illuminati actually know this, because I'll put a link in the description box to the article I wrote, but the pineal gland, now this goes back to Strassman and Graham Hancock. The pineal gland is actually very, very important. It's a tiny little thing in the brain. It's only about the size of a pea, and it's in everyone's brain. And it's the only thing in the brain that's not duplicated. In other words, there's not one half and then the other half. It's just like a single thing. We know it produces melatonin that governs our sleep patterns, but Strassman also reckons it produces DMT, the spirit molecule, which gives people, for want of a better word, a spiritual awakening. I know that's an oversimplification, but that's what it is in a nutshell. And you see what happens to the floor. This pineal gland, it works very well when we're infants and when we're children, and slowly but surely, as you go through your life, calcium deposits build up inside it. And doctors actually call it a pineal bone. It's almost like they describe it as being a bit like a bone almost. And this happens naturally through life. It's unavoidable. And by the time you reach middle age, the pineal has lost a lot of its function. Yeah, you know what accelerates the calcium build-up in the pineal gland? Fluoride. And what they put in our water? What are they putting in our toothpaste? I wonder why. I'll leave you to think about that question. I'll answer it when I come out, probably. If not, the answer is in the description box. But it's time to go into the Oxford Town Hall now and watch the event. Well, as you can see, it's in the Great Hall again, which means there's probably going to be a large number of people. It'll be like the Lennox talk. Several hundred, probably, judging by the number of seats laid out. So, very nice, isn't it? It's going to be starting in a minute. You can see how many people are here. Large numbers of people. So, yeah, it's very popular. It's on the scale of the John Lennox talk. So, of course, there's the first slide. That's interesting. You can follow, these are the organisers' seed talks.
Unitary something stable over time is something that we are actually constructing. We are in a constant sense of assembling so that we have a sense of continuity. Right? Why in some of the research, how can we they relax moves. So now we're going to go into a bit more hardcore neuroscience, and neuroscientific understanding. So bear with me. In neuroscience, we used to think that the brain operates by kind of like passively taking in information from the unprecedented when one thinks about conventional psychiatry. It's very hard to find something like this. So it's quite a striking finding. It's preliminary, but more research is needed. Another application of psychedelics may pertain to the possibilities to treat addiction. So this is work done by the team in Johns Hopkins University in the US, showing how, again, psychedelic therapy using mushrooms and psychological support can significantly and meaningfully reduce addiction to tobacco. There is also other research into alcoholism, looking at very positive findings.
That's it, all done. Interesting stuff that was, yeah. Very good. Gonna head out now. Head back to home. I don't know what time it is, but yeah, I feel a bit tired actually for some reason. I feel like a sort of exhaustion has set in. I don't know why, but the kind of people were there, like the whole thing wasn't what I expected. I mean, he wasn't what I expected. The people there weren't. There were quite a lot of students and people, like a lot of young people, clearly students, but also there was like some couple of old hippie types. Maybe you even include the speaker in that. I've got to concentrate now as I get out of the building. There's a lot of interesting stuff there, definitely. Sorry. Right. Just find my notes. Oh yeah. Ooh, time to go home. I'm glad I went to that though, it was fun. That was interesting. Yeah, and turn that round. As luck would have it, you know, I ended up sitting next to someone who's sort of on my wavelength, a lady called Helen, and she just happened to sit next to me, and it was just good luck there, I suppose. And we had a good conversation. Yeah, that was not what I expected at all. He said, you know, he started from the outset. I mean, I was kind of expecting something more sceptical. I was expecting him to be more of a skeptic, you know. Being at Imperial College, I mean, I was saying to this lady Helen, she says, "Oh, they're very mainstream at Imperial College, you know. They're just very, very." So she was expecting the same, I think. But he said immediately, he brought up the subject of spirituality in his own. We got like some music at the pub. Oh, they're playing the Toto. Away from you. La la la. Oh, I love this one. Oh god, I'm going to get a copyright strike for that, will I? I don't think so, yeah. That's pretty good though, anyway. That's actually the bear. Which, believe it or not, is I probably will get like a third-party strike for that because they can't recognise tunes. The AI can actually. This is the bear is one of Oxford's oldest pubs, but the AI can recognise tunes. I know because you know Dave from Truth Seekers North East. I got a third-party strike for the tune he played. I didn't realise, but it wasn't his own tune. It was his own lyrics. But I got a third-party strike for the tune, even though he was playing it on his guitar with different lyrics. But yeah, he brought up the subject of spirituality immediately, and he talked about the difference. He talked about how the history of it, how it goes back to indigenous times. He comes from Santiago, Chile, so he knows that he grew up in South America, where there's a huge tradition in this, and he talks about what the name of it all. Now, this is something that Andy Roberts talked about in his lecture, which Niall recorded, because the term psycho is psyche. It's all from Greek, the Greek word psyche, which means the soul or the mind or the consciousness. But all other combination words or compounds coming from that Greek, it's not psyche with an E. It is psycho. The O is the vowel which links it to other parts of the compound word. So psychedelic is unique in that. He didn't mention that, that's just something I remembered. You see, the term hallucinogen is never used nowadays, apparently. He says it's inaccurate. And then he said something amazing. He said, well, really all, he talked about later on about how the brain works. And he said, basically, well, everything we perceive as a hallucination, literally, if you define hallucination as something created, an image created by the brain, rather than the outside world, well, in the real world, everything is a hallucination, because the brain is not just a receiver and projector of reality. It creates a model which your mind then perceives. You see, he's an open-minded guy. Very open-minded guy. I think he's already crossed over to the sort of Strassman growth kind of barrier. He's already on that level. Go down here. I think the film crew have gone now. Well, oh no, they're still there. Go back a long way. DMT via ayahuasca has been used for 4,200 years in South America. Psilocybin through magic mushrooms at least 500 years. Mescaline, which comes from the peyote cactus, over 5,000 years. And I mean, there's a Western tradition in this. He didn't mention this interesting fact, but there's a Western tradition. It's the lily of the Nile in Egypt, which appears in the Voynich manuscript. So even though people can't understand the language, they do understand some of the imagery. You see the lily of the Nile, which has a psychoactive alkaloid in it. And you know about the Greek oracles? These were the prophets of the oracles, the oracles of Dodona and Delphi. These were basically women who swam in pools in caves and produced amazing things about what was happening and what was going to happen in the future, things like that. But they are still there. And you see, the people who went to visit the oracles would always drink a brew before they went in. I forgot the name of it now. I forgot what it's called, but it was it included. I mean, this is accidental, I suppose, but it included rye. All the ingredients are not known, but it included rye. Now, rye can sometimes develop a deadly fungus, can sometimes appear on rye, called ergot, which releases something called ergotine, which is a deadly poison. That's why if you eat mouldy rye, you die. However, ergotine is also the source for a natural form of LSD. It was from this that Hoffman actually produced LSD. So is it possible the ancient Greek oracles, the brew, accidentally produced LSD, which people were consuming when they went to see them? Interesting question, but it goes back. He is very on that sort of Graham Hancock level. I'm surprised I've not heard from him. I'm surprised I've not heard of him before. I am surprised. I thought I would have done. She talks about the origins of ayahuasca. Ayahuasca, of course, is taken traditionally as a brew. It's drunk. Now, of course, the ayahuasca ingredient, there's two ingredients that go into this brew: the leaves of a plant called Psychotria viridis, which is known as chacruna to the Amazon Indians. It has DMT in it. Now, you could eat as much of that as you like normally. You could stuff your face with chacruna, you wouldn't get a trip, because your body contains something called monoamine oxidase. It's an enzyme which digests, which is a part of your digestion, which destroys DMT on contact. But the other ingredient, ayahuasca, coincidentally, is the ayahuasca vine itself, called Banastropsis capi as well. And it contains a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. Of all the combinations of plants that exist in the Amazon, billions of different combinations, they happen to come across this one. And so when you drink the two together, the monoamine oxidase inhibitor in the vine stops your body from producing DMT temporarily while it lasts, so DMT destroyer, so you can actually digest successfully the DMT. Amazing, isn't it? But of course, the active ingredient of DMT can be taken in other settings, such as it can be smoked. There's several videos of people who are describing their smoking experiences of DMT. It can also be taken by injection. Rick Strassman gave people infusions of DMT intravenously, basically inject them into the bloodstream. And funnily enough, you get different results if you do that. The quality of the experience seems to be different for some reason. You get different kinds of visions. If you go to the Amazon and go to a workshop, you see basically what the natives see. Yet if Rick Strassman's volunteers, guinea pigs, saw something else. That's odd, isn't it? Let's turn the page here on my notes. There's psilocybin. Psilocybin is the active ingredient of magic mushrooms. Again, very, very widely used in South America. There's something fundamental about these plants. That's why he said they seem to have, they've been used since prehistoric times. For all we know, people have been using them for a very, very long time. The subject of the stoned ape theory came up in the Q&A. I'll come to that in a minute. But for all we know, people have been ingesting these materials for as long as we've been human, maybe even before. Maybe it's what made us human, as Terence McKenna suggested. So it's something that's co-evolved with us. In fact, later on he talks about the neurology of the whole thing, but it goes through waves of popularity. See, it goes. Sometimes it's not used at all. Other times, some cultures use it all the time. Others don't use them at all. And sometimes they go through. They become very fashionable for a while. They're not. Less so afterwards. I'm just going across Moreland Bridge now. It's getting busy now, but I don't want to have to. I'm not going to go home and do any studio scenes now because I've got to do my show on Panama Radio tomorrow. So I'll get it all done as I walk home. So, for example, after World War II, there was a huge emergence of psychedelic use. It became very, very common, and this culminated in the counterculture of the 60s, the flower power and that kind of milieu, which had a huge influence on our culture today. And as Dr. Timmerman was saying, basically our whole world has been influenced by psychedelic experiences, though we don't always know exactly in what way, but it is there. And of course, during the 1960s, the influence was enormous, especially on music, but on all art forms, cinema, paintings, all kinds of art forms were influenced very much by this particular phenomenon. This tradition, this modern tradition, is actually quite new, but it influenced not just sort of like people in the counterculture, but mainstream scientists. Steve Jobs, he recently left this world, but the creator of Apple. Francis Crick, the co-discoverer of DNA. He and James Watson worked to discover the DNA. Crick says he saw. Now, he wasn't a spiritual guy, but he used LSD to get certain insights. He found it useful, but he said that he essentially saw the molecule before he discovered it, while he was high on acid. Other people, the guy who, this really surprised me, the bloke who invented the PCR test. was an acid head. Can you believe that? In that case, it's a pretty malevolent drug. If that were true, if that was the cause of his invention of the PCR test, but he got a Nobel Prize for that. So now Maria Sabina, someone I've not heard of, is a person who worked to bring these two things together. She was a Chilean, I think, who worked to bring the old and the new together, and she called the psychoactive drugs, she called them Niños Santos, which is Spanish. It means the holy boys. And she's quite. I think she's more. I've not heard of her, but she's more famous, I think, in that country where Dr. Timmerman comes from. It's also invented this artist in the indigenous world of South America, Pablo Amaringo. I've talked about him before. But he's very interesting. And psychedelics are actually less harmful than most other narcotics. The people who die in psychedelic episodes is very low. There are risks associated with them. They're not 100% safe. Yet, if you compare how many people die from tobacco and alcohol-related disease, it's in this country alone, it's hundreds of thousands per year. One of the biggest causes of death we have is abuse of legal drugs. Was it Bill Hicks says? Yeah, the nice taxable drugs. Yeah. And right. And of course, it's been used for consciousness research. See, he's not. He is. And you see, he's a doctor. He's concerned. His primary interest is in psychiatrics and psychology, psychiatry and psychology. Yet, he talks about consciousness research in the same way that Strassman did. So he's not a skepper. I think I assumed here he was. The molecules themselves are the very drugs. Yeah, I'm going to include one of them in the end illustration for the illustration for the end titles of this film. That's the DMT, but there's many others. They very closely resemble the body's natural hormones, things like melatonin, which is interesting. It's almost as if, there are receptors in our cells, which are deliberately, it's almost as if they've been designed to, almost as if they've been created deliberately to work with these substances. So there's something natural about it. There's something natural about the way our brains work, which is associated with these substances. That's remarkable. It's very alike. I think it's related to the God on the brain phenomenon, because there's actually a documentary from the BBC. It's actually a good one, rather than a crappy one like the ones you normally get from the Beeb. It's actually quite good, called God on the Brain, which shows how religious, spiritual experiences, transcendental experiences, profound experiences are actually, believe it or not, natural. Our brain is hardwired to create these states of consciousness and these experiences, and that is extraordinary. Unlike some people like Richard Dawkins and others, this is not actually evidence that whether or not God exists. It can't be applied to the question of whether or not these experiences there's any objective reality behind them. But it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting phenomenon that is the case, that there's no real reason in terms of biology that we should evolve this function. It serves no purpose. It appears to serve no evolutionary purpose, but yet we do have it. Right, there are different kinds of hallucinations. There's you go through the different kinds of hallucinations you have. Now, I have experiences, whether you call them that. They're simple and complex. And the simple ones are more common than the complex ones, but the simple ones are geometric shapes. A lot of people see geometric patterns. Usually these are animated, they're not just static. They're moving images of tessellations and patterns involving regular shapes in a pattern. And the reason some of them get very, very complicated, people are describing them as being like mandalas or crop circles. So these so-called simple shapes, these simple hallucinations can get very complicated. There's a theory this is actually simply the perception of the inside of the brain by the neurons. Susan Blackmore, the great atheo-materialo skeptic, who I talked about at Sufon, she proposed this as an explanation for the near-death experience. She said that the tunnel of light that people see, the tunnel with a light at the end, is simply, it actually can be explained by the effects of neurons basically shutting down as the brain dies. She wrote an article in a magazine I used to like but went downhill, Focus magazine. I stopped reading it eventually because it turned crap. So that was interesting, I thought. The complex ones include literally images that are as real as, or some people describe as even more real than our everyday baseline reality, what we see anyway, complete alternative worlds. People see everything that we see in our normal world, plus more sometimes. And very often these have a surreal element to them. So you might see a city, but the city will not be a real one. You might see a natural scene, or an ocean, or wood, but it'll be different to the ones you're familiar with. As if this is some kind of parallel universe you're perceiving. You may see individual, animals, things, but they won't be exactly like. Sometimes, occasionally they're sort of naturalistic, but usually they are surreal. Sometimes you see mythical beasts, or even strange imaginary beasts. Sometimes they're combinations of different species in one body. These are the so-called therianthropes that Graham Hancock talks about. They have other very, very positive effects, such as thought clarification. They can actually help organise your thoughts into better ways to provide insights. And now this is why Francis Crick used LSD. He was an atheo-materialo skeptic, didn't believe in any soul or afterlife or anything. But he understood that the LSD trip actually helped him organise his mental processes better, and they seem to have that kind of effect. In fact, there's actual diagrams of the brain working. You see, this is where he did do fMRI scans on people undergoing psilocybin trips. Now that's, Strassman never did that, neither did Grove. I was wrong about that, but what he found was that the brain seemed to be more organised. I mean, he noticed that certain parts of the brain were shut down, the parts that seem to create an awareness of where you are in life and your position, things like that in the universe, those shut down, leading to the effect of like ego dissolution, which is a common feature of the psychedelic trip. But however, Andrew Newberg now did something similar. Andrew Newberg appeared in What the Bleep Do We Know? He also appeared in David Malone's documentaries. Because he did fMRI scans on people meditating and got similar results, although Dr. Timmerman never mentioned this, and as far as I know, he doesn't know about them. He may not have heard of that. It's going back quite a few years now to the 1990s. Time distortion. Self-body awareness. This is again... Some people report feeling that their body's changed. Their limbs are different shapes and sizes. They themselves are different sizes, things like that. That's another feature of the experience. Time distortion. Now, I actually did have... I never said this on... I think I've not mentioned this on Panmo TV before, but I have actually had 2 cannabis experiences, which were not exactly psychedelic. The second one was a bit psychedelic. I think I got a feeling the bloke who supplied it, he added a few more ingredients, because I saw people with green faces and things like that. It's you get this altered perception of time. One thing I didn't notice with both my cannabis experiences was a massively altered perception of time. For me, time slowed down. I actually was in a room with people and I got the feeling it was, we were there all evening. I got the feeling it was like about 11 p.m. They said, no, it's only 8 p.m. But the feeling of, I've talked before about the speed of notional time, relating to the 2012 phenomenon. Time's dragging, time flies, things like that, people say that. Today's really dragging, time flies when you're having fun, things like that. So, that apparently is a feature, very much a feature of this sort of experience. It seems to be very much like that. It's a kind of a... So that's something I did notice when I had this kind of experience. I did, I really did. Right. I'm sorry, don't donate cash or goods on the street. Take care. And what else was there? Compare it to dreams, like for example, the spiritual transcendental side of things. That's all too obvious. We all know about that. That's all too obvious. But there was something else. Just going through my notes here. The relaxation of belief. This again, it's related to the thought clarification. That you end up being more sort of naturally non-conformist. It's funny that in the book The Illuminatus trilogy by Robert Shea and Robert Anton Wilson, in one of the scenes, the main protagonist, Hagbard Celine, he actually feeds people a drug called AUM, which makes them think outside the box. And again, relaxation of belief is a part of this. It makes you less inclined to go with the flow and be conformist. There we go. Right, just going through this. Now, what's interesting is that when people have these hallucinations, the complex ones and things like that, the brain is not necessarily more active. Now, this is unusual because this was not what people expected. When you have a dream, your brain becomes very active. The dream state, when you're sleeping, your brain is hyperactive. Goes through a huge amount of convolutions because it's essentially creating a virtual reality for you. I mean, why we have no one knows exactly why we have dreams. It's a big mystery. But a lot of humans and a lot of other animals all dream. So the fMRI does actually talk about brain areas, brain areas sometimes being less active, as Andrew Newberg did as well. I mean, I didn't get the chance to. I was going to ask him a question about the comparison between these phenomena, these kinds of states of mind, and the near-death experience, because there are a lot of similarities. Well, in terms of the near-death experiences, the brain is in a very abnormal state of basic complete shutdown. So maybe it's a different kind of research that we're talking about here. But there are qualitative similarities between some of the things people report in psychedelic experiences and near-death experiences. And it's not just context. I mean, context being the fact that you do nearly die and have this experience. So you interpret it differently than if you're just taking a drug and you're not dying. And the change of beliefs, it creates new self-models. So, and this can be very beneficial. This is where the clinical side of it comes in, because people who have this kind of therapy, because he's involved in actual psychiatric therapy involving psychedelics, just like Stanislav Grof did. And that is, people say things like, I suddenly realised I was worthy of love. I never thought that before, but I suddenly realised I was worthy of love, and I thought I wasn't. Things like that. Now, there's one thing he didn't address, and I don't think he would. He certainly didn't seem that kind of person, but, what's Big Pharma going to make of this? because he said that he's done research which indicates that the use of these psychedelics is as effective. He said at least as effective as the standard selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, things like Prozac and amitriptyline, which are devastating. They turn people into Stepford wives. Yet they make a lot of money for the big pharma. Now how could big pharma maintain its business model? Someone in the Q&A talks about this business model in terms of practical side of things. Because how exactly do you patent these things? A lot of them are natural. They're herbal. In many cases, they're very abundant. Such as psilocybin is extremely abundant. You find it as long as you know what to look for, you can find it very easily almost anywhere in the world. There's probably the kind of fungi you were talking about may well be growing in your garden. You'd certainly find some in your local park or forest. So how do you patent? You can't patent that. You can't sell it for a lot of money. That's another reason I think why a big farm wouldn't like it. So creating the purpose of the treatment is to create a safe, happy environment so that they can be the setting, to use the proper terminology, so these things can be used safely. So like you'd have a nice room full of nice music and gentle light. People would be around you to care for you, things like that. When you take this phenomenon, it was one of the reasons people have bad trips is they take these things when they're like at a party or something, and they're in a nightclub full of strangers and there's loud, raucous music, and they probably had a lot of alcohol as well. That's the ingredients for a bad trip. People talk about the meaning of life more when they gain an appreciation of life more when they've had this, and this is in common with the near-death experience, very much so in common with the NDE. And of course, palliative care. He said palliative care is a big part of this. In other words, people who are terminally ill, giving this treatment to them, and this does improve the quality of your final days if you are terminally ill. And this, of course, is never. People don't talk about this much because of the whole MBA thing, but belief in an afterlife. People who take these drugs tend to have that kind of belief because they see a world beyond the one we perceive normally, and they think, well, why couldn't that be there after we're dead? And of course, not everyone. There's many exceptions. Francis Crick didn't, but that's quite rare. That's actually quite nice. Getting a bit rough around here, so I'm just going to go over here. I'm just going to cross over quickly, just because there's some dodgy characters around. This is Cowley Road, folks. I've filmed here before during the day, but it can get a bit rowdy here at night. I'll just go over here for a sec. I'm nearly finished now anyway. There are risks associated with this. For example, I finally have conspiracy theory belief. I haven't touched one, I'll tell you. Your paranoia, things like that. The use of the feeling of escapism, becoming not addicted to the drug. I mean, the physical impact of these drugs is negligible, but just the experience itself, detaching them from reality. This was a big problem in the 60s. During the Q&A, someone asked if they was compared it to things such as autophagy, that is fasting. Lisa from Cry Freedom, she knows all about this. And as I mentioned, Newberg, who compares it to things such as meditation. And I was very impressed. He'd heard of holotropic breath work, which was patented by Stanislav Grof. Someone asked about the stoned ape theory. This is Terence McKenna's idea that essentially modern humans emerged from pre-humans or proto-humans who gradually their brains evolved with time into to become as intelligent as we are now, because they were consuming these kinds of things, these medications, these substances. Someone asked about brainwave changes. There's ketamine is another drug used for treating depression, although Dr. Timmerman said ketamine is a bit sort of like dodgy because it has more of a physical impact. Someone asked about whether it could be used for other cases. Indeed, it can. It's not just psychological problems it can be used for. It can be used for dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things like that. They've had positive results with that. Effectively, it helps the rewiring of the brain following the damage done by these diseases, and also traumatic brain injury. People who have TBI also have had good results as well, and it certainly helps them psychologically, overcoming the depression that often accompanies a massive traumatic brain injury. Very interesting stuff, although it didn't quite go all the way that I wanted it to go. What I said earlier about, I was talking earlier on about fluoride. Now, there's two main conspiracy theories associated with psychedelics. One is that it was created deliberately. I mean, Neil Sanders talks about this. LSD was put out there by the bad guys to dumb us down and things like that. But the other conspiracy theory, which of course is of course these two are mutually exclusive, is that the bad guys themselves are suppressing the psychedelic experience. And if we are, as Brick Strassman claims, capable of having endogenous DMT and things like that through our pineal glands, well, maybe that's why, as I said earlier, maybe that's why they're putting fluoride in the water, because it speeds up the calcification of the pineal gland. So it's calming down a bit now. Speeds up the calcification of the pineal gland. I mean, you can talk about, guys can let me know what you think in the comments section. But it's a big subject. It's a huge issue. But would you put it past them? Would you claim that we wouldn't do something like this? How would? I mean, it goes back to the stuff I said about the afterlife. Could a government rule us effectively, an Illuminati-occupied government that wants to control and manipulate us negatively? Could they rule us if we all have this kind of awareness? Graham Hancock talks a lot about this as well, but you guys let me know. So it's too big a subject to go into detail in this particular video, but it's worth thinking about, isn't it? A very, very interesting talk indeed. Thanks to Dr. Timmerman for that and the organisers. They're going to do some more actually on the similar subjects. So I'll probably be going back there to listen to other speakers. Thank you. It's been a good night out. It's time for bed. I'm going to head home now. It's getting a bit calmer now. Thank you for watching Panwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order.